Right now, Governor Polis is beginning to speak now from Denver. Let's listen in.
Real. It seems like a cruel, ironic joke. Here we are, a state of people who love the outdoors, suddenly quarantined inside, told not to visit our majestic mountain towns and world-class ski resorts. A state with a booming economy, suddenly specked with boarded up windows and empty shops. A state of darers, dreamers, and doers, suddenly boxed in by four walls, a floor, and a ceiling. I know many of you watching this evening are distressed, frustrated, angry, not just because we're all stuck inside, but because we're unsure of what the future holds for ourselves and our loved ones. We all want a timeline. When will this nightmare be over? How will we pay the rent or mortgage? How can we keep the family business afloat? How can we keep our loved ones safe? Questions like these are keeping many Coloradans, including me, up at night. It's okay to feel this way. You're not alone. This crisis is impacting us all in so many ways. It's unlike anything we've seen before in our lifetimes. A severe public health emergency and a severe economic emergency hitting us at the same time. We can't live without an open and functional economy and market. People need to be free to engage in commerce and transactions, trade and work, but we simply can't function normally while we're living day to day in mortal fear of a deadly virus. The sheer size of this crisis has forced us to take a series of drastic measures that we would have thought unthinkable, unimaginable just a month ago. And in order to save lives and prevent more widespread economic damage, we need to continue to take bold action. The President and top national health experts at the Center for Disease Control have set a national goal of April 30th as the date that extreme social distancing measures like stay at home can likely end. I'm hopeful we can get things going sooner in Colorado. We're not just hoping, but working hard to be able to end as many of these devastating limitations on movement and commerce as quickly as possible. This evening, I'm announcing that our Colorado stay-at-home order is now planned to end April 26th, 2 additional weeks beyond the current order, several days ahead of the national goal. If there's any way to safely end it sooner, I will. And likewise, if Coloradans aren't staying at home and the numbers of dead and dying continue to pile up, it could go longer. The reason for the April 26th date is simple, because the data and the science tell us that staying at home is our best chance, our only realistic chance to avoid a catastrophic loss of life, the death of thousands of our friends, our neighbors, our family members. We're fighting an invisible enemy, a virus that is both deadly and extremely contagious. The fewer social interactions we have with one another, the fewer opportunities there are for people to spread the virus to others, and the fewer infections we'll have in our state. We're also in a race against the clock, because if too many people get seriously ill all at once from the virus, our healthcare system simply won't have the capacity to handle all of those sick patients. Without an adequate supply of masks and gloves for our healthcare workers or ventilators for the critically ill, and without the testing supplies that we need for mass testing and effective containment, our only option is to limit the number of person-to-person interactions. Like many of you, I'm beyond furious that we've been forced to shut down large portions of our economy, putting tens of thousands of people out of a job, because as the wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, we still don't have access to the supplies and testing we need to mount a proper, more targeted response. I know that we would all rather be going back to work tomorrow instead of collecting government stimulus checks or unemployment insurance. I know that business owners will have to make even harder decisions this month. I know that we all want this to end as soon as possible. But if the choice is between a temporary shutdown and a catastrophic loss of life, the choice is clear. These closures and restrictions will be temporary, but when you lose a life, you lose it forever. And in fact, the economic consequences would be even more severe and more prolonged if we completely overload our hospital system. The longer this economic paralysis lasts, the fewer jobs there will be to return to, and the more difficult the recovery will be. Thankfully, a A silver lining is just beginning to emerge in Colorado. The data is telling us that thanks to the actions we've taken and you've taken, we're starting to make progress. At the beginning of this crisis, the number of positive cases in Colorado was doubling every 1.5 days. Today, the number of positive cases is about doubling every 6 to 7 days. That means the spread of the virus is beginning to slow. This is a remarkable achievement by you, the people of this state, and I want to thank each and every one of you who's been taking this seriously and staying home. You're truly helping to turn the tide against this deadly virus. This is not the time to abandon what's been working. Quite the opposite. We need to keep up the good work for a while longer so we can eventually return to a level of normalcy in our economy and our society. That means washing your hands frequently with soap and water, wiping down surfaces, avoiding touching your face. Most importantly, we need to stay at home and not go out unless it's absolutely necessary. And when we do go out, you need to stay at least 6, 8, 10 feet away from others and wear a cloth facial covering or a mask when you absolutely need to leave your home. And you don't need to buy a mask or even buy craft materials for one. You can simply make one from an old t-shirt or just use a scarf. Really, any facial mask that covers your mouth and your nose works as long as it doesn't interfere with your own breathing. By following these steps, you're saving lives. Could be the life of your grandparent, your parent, your aunt, your uncle, your cousin, your child, your friend. It could even be your own life. The better job we do of staying in, the sooner we'll be able to go back out. I know this isn't easy, but if we all do our part, we can beat this virus and get back to living our lives. Earlier today, I spoke with a family where both parents, Andrew and Christine, both children and both maternal grandparents were all sickened with coronavirus. 5 out of 6 are fully recovered, and we hope that grandma is well on the way to feeling better. They told me that the virus impacted each member of the family differently, and the outcome could have been different if they didn't have access to medical attention. Now look, 80 to 90% of those who get this virus won't need medical assistance, but between 10 and 20% will need hospitalized care. Right now, by using this valuable time to prepare for this coming surge in patients, we can make sure that everyone who has a chance to make it gets that fighting chance. We're moving heaven and earth to ensure that our healthcare workers have the gowns, the masks, the gloves, the face shields to keep them safe. Because they are our heroes. They're the ones who will take care of us when we're sick, and we owe it to them to keep them healthy. We're building more hospital beds and working to acquire more ventilators to make sure we have the capacity to handle the projected increase of severely sick patients. And I want to thank Colorado Hospitals and the Army Corps of Engineers for constructing hospital space to meet the needs. Finally, we're using our creativity, our innovative, scrappy, and independent spirit to obtain more tests so that we can have widespread testing and containment like South Korea and Taiwan, who've been able to successfully return to a level of normalcy by testing, quarantining and isolating individuals instead of quarantining an entire society. Recovery from both the virus and the economic devastation is possible, and we will get there. But all these efforts will be in vain, and many lives will be lost if we fail to do our crucial patriotic duty and stay home. By staying home and wearing a mask when you have to go out and practicing distancing and good hygiene, you're literally saving lives. The need to limit interactions is so great that the federal government is literally paying us to stay home. If you make up to $75,000 as an individual or $150,000 as a couple, you'll get $1,200 per person. And no matter what your income level is, you'll get $500 per child age 16 and under. This is not free money. The federal government, President Trump, Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, almost the entire United States Congress agreed that paying Americans to stay inside is needed to prevent a full-scale disaster. You need to earn this money by staying home, except when absolutely necessary to go out. The federal package also includes an incentive for companies to keep you on payroll, even if you're not able to go to work, to prevent even worse layoffs. On the state level, my administration is suspending regulations, deferring tax payments, eliminating red tape and in-person requirements for many license renewals, and working tirelessly to ensure that we're supporting our businesses and our workers as we all weather the storm to ensure a speedy economic recovery when this is past us. What matters now is not what you believe politically or your occupation or what your faith is or your age or your race. None of that matters here because none of that matters to the virus. What matters is that the more we stay home, no matter who you are, the better chance we have of beating this virus so that we can all go back to the things that make life worth living. Look, I know this isn't easy. I know Coloradans are hurting, and this is no ordinary emergency. We faced crises before, floods, fires, recessions, but this one is uniquely painful because we can't be with one another. This April will always be known as the lost month. We all have the blessing of being on this planet for 900 or 1,000 months in our lives. And we won't get this one back, but if we act together and take action, we will have many more to live in prosperity and health. In times of tragedy and difficulty, humanity comes together in fellowship. We mourn and we celebrate together. We laugh together and we cry together. We find comfort in the company and the love of one another. Now, we can't do that right now physically, but that doesn't mean that we can't be with and don't need to be with one another emotionally. Use this time to reconnect with friends and family and loved ones. Thankfully, there's been amazing progress in how we can stay together even as we stay apart. Email, phone, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime. We can see and hear our loved ones.
All right, we just lost our signal from the governor regarding the latest update on the COVID-19 fight here in Colorado. Oh, we got him back, so let's jump back in.
Place, and the spread of the virus will be limited enough that we can get back to a fairly normal economy and society. There will be a day in the not too distant future that we can physically be together once again, when we can go to bars and restaurants, attend schools and universities, churches, temples, and houses of worship, when grandparents can hug their grandchildren without the fear of getting sick, when we can once again feel the wind against our face as we ski down our favorite ski runs and hike our favorite trails. But that day is not today, nor is it tomorrow. Right now, we need to dig deep into our souls to muster the resolve, the courage, the fortitude to carry on and do our patriotic duty as generations have done before. Thousands of our forefathers sacrificed on battlefields defending our freedom, our homeland, our way of life. Thousands of our foremothers sacrificed pots and pans and farm equipment to be melted down for the war effort during World War II. People had ration cards to save food for the troops. We banned men's suits from including cuffs and restricted the length of shirts to save fabric. Everyday citizens became heroes. Ordinary men and women became G.I. Joes and Rosie the Riveters, everyone working together and doing their part. We scraped and toiled and persevered, and we won. That is the spirit that we all need right now. This generation has been called upon to make our own sacrifice, to temporarily sacrifice our way of life so that we can save human life and return to normal. And I know that we can rise to the challenge once again. A number of communities across the world, including some right here in Colorado, have taken up a new tradition of going outside for a moment at 8 p.m. to applaud and cheer our brave healthcare workers who are putting their own health and safety on the line to keep us safe, and everyone else who's helping us through this crisis and putting themselves at risk. Our first responders, our farmers and ranchers, our journalists, our custodial workers, our grocery store workers, delivery people, truckers, so many more. I want to encourage Coloradans to participate in this new tradition this evening and every evening this crisis is with us. Our appreciation for those putting themselves at risk unites us across the world. And the only way we're going to get through this is by working together as a state, as a nation, and as a world. Both China and Taiwan are donating masks and protective equipment to Colorado. Israel even delivered masks to Palestinians. And let's also cheer our very own scientists at Colorado State University who are racing around the clock for a vaccine or cure. And when we achieve that cure or vaccine, and I say when, not if, whether it comes out of Germany, South Korea, Japan, or Fort Collins, it will be shared around the world to end this crisis and save lives. I might not agree with Henry Kissinger on much, but I found his recent words in the Wall Street Journal very profound. He said, quote, "The pandemic has prompted an anachronism, a revival of the walled city in an age when prosperity depends on global trade and movement of people," end quote. Colorado and America is not a walled city. We will survive this and return to health and prosperity by embracing the world rather than shrinking from it. And through this crisis, we'll reaffirm our identity as innovative, resilient, good-hearted people who care for one another. St. Francis of Assisi once said, quote, "All the darkness in the world cannot extinguish the light of a single candle," end quote. In these dark times, we all have a light to shine, and that light is the goodness within all of us. We see that light in the young man who picks up groceries and medicine for an elderly neighbor so they don't have to go to the store and risk getting the virus. We see that light in the small business owner keeping her employees on payroll because it's the fair and decent and right thing to do. We see that light in the parents who do their best to explain these difficult times to their children and making sure they know the truth of that wisdom, that a single candle is enough to light the dark. We see that light in the teams of doctors and researchers and scientists spending week after week in labs all over the globe, burning the midnight oil, showing that light, searching for the cure to save the world. We need everyone to do their part. We need everyone to show that light. And when we do, as I know we will, we'll find our way out of this darkness and into the light of a brilliant new day. Thank you. God bless the great state of Colorado, and God bless the United States of America.
You've been listening live to Governor Jared Polis with the latest update on the battle against COVID-19 here in Colorado. A couple major headlines. First of all, extending the stay-at-home policy now till April 26th. However, that's 4 days shorter than the national deadline. And the governor also said there is a silver lining starting to emerge in this, specifically the number of days it's taking for cases to double in Colorado. Initially, it was 1 to 2 days. Now it's 7 to 8 days, the governor said. All right, we want a little more local perspective. We are joined tonight by Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers, along with Pueblo Mayor Nick Gradisar for their reaction to the governor. I'm going to start with Mayor Suthers first. Some light, a message of hope here, John, but still a lot of work to do in extending this stay-at-home policy.
Yeah, I thought it was a good message. What I appreciate about the governor is I think he's listening to health experts and public officials like the governor, myself, other mayors. We really have to listen to the health experts, and virtually all of them are saying that the next couple of weeks can be very critical in flattening the curve. All the models, have pretty severe projections and mild projections, and we want to make sure those are on the mild side. And that requires that we adhere to the stay-at-home order and social distancing. And I also appreciate his kind of step-by-step approach. We're going to go April 26th, evaluate, see where we are. If we made considerable progress, maybe we can be ahead of the curve that some other states are looking at. So I thought the governor's message was a very realistic one, but a hopeful one.
Gradisar in Pueblo. And Mayor, you've been putting out a message on YouTube for the last couple of weeks, taking into consideration what's happening at the state level, but also what's happening in your own community. Your reaction to the information we just heard from the governor. Mayor Gradisar, can you hear me?
Well, I agree with Mayor Suthers that the governor's remarks tonight were hopeful remarks. Yes, I can. Can you hear me? Yes. I agree with Mayor Suthers that the governor's message was a hopeful message tonight, one that I hope people will take to heart, because it's very, very important that we honor this stay-at-home order and do not leave unless it's absolutely necessary. As the governor suggested, during this time, there are difficult choices. There aren't any good choices, but there are good decisions, and the good decisions we can make as citizens of Colorado is to stay at home and honor those orders so we maintain that social distancing.
And I think the key is that as time goes on, Mayor Gradisar, as each day progresses, obviously more and more pushback against your administration, the Colorado Springs administration, but it seems like right now is the time that we absolutely need to double down on our efforts to keep people at home. And as the governor said, the federal government is paying people to stay home because it is a matter of life and death. Mayor Gradisar?
Yes, we want everybody wants to get through this as quickly as possible. But to the extent that we don't stay at home and this virus continues to spread, we are going to overrun our medical facilities, and it's going to prolong the economic damage that it's already done. That's why I think it's critical that we stay at home unless it's absolutely necessary to leave, so that we can get this over with and get back on track. It'll take us a while to get back on track, and I know everybody's anxious to do that, but the way we're going to get back on track quicker is by staying at home now.
And Mayor Suthers, there's been just monumental efforts done by local hospitals as well as the Army Corps of Engineers to try and build additional hospital space in southern Colorado communities when and if we see this surge, which we do expect. The numbers continue to rise. What is the biggest concern for you as it relates to meeting that surge and trying to deal with it?
Well, once again, listening to the health experts, and they have identified a couple of locations where we can move non-COVID patients to free up more room for COVID patients in the hospitals. I feel we're in constant communication with our hospitals. I feel very good about their planning. And if some of the current trends continue so that we're doubling in more and more time instead of less and less time, we may be able to get through this without having to move patients into, recreational centers and things like that. We hope that's the case. We have to be prepared if numbers go a different way. But there's some hope in the numbers, as the governor said tonight. And if people will stay serious about this, continue to social distance, continue to honor the stay-at-home order, we'll get through this faster than we otherwise would.
Mayor Suthers, Mayor Gradisar, we have just a couple of minutes. First, Mayor Suthers, I'll get to you quickly. What is the one thing that you're hearing from the community or from those within your administration, and then the message you want to then re-emphasize to the community about getting through this one day at a time?
Well, the economic losses are devastating, particularly for small businesses. A lot of these small businesses are very much on a margin, and any length of these stay-at-home orders are just incredibly impactful to them. But I want, as I think the governor's message was, if we can get through this in a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, as a result of observing the stay-at-home order, wearing our masks, things like that, we'll be a heck of a lot better off than we'd be if this lasts a couple of months or 3 months. As much as we can shorten the health consequences here, the shorter the economic consequences will be as well.
And Mayor Gradisar, it is in fact an economic and a health crisis. What's the biggest pushback you're hearing from folks in Pueblo, and what is the one thing you'd like to emphasize here tonight to folks in Pueblo and Pueblo County about getting through this and being disciplined one day at a time?
Well, I think, the governor's adding 14 additional days or 15 additional days to his original stay-at-home order is something that people in Pueblo are going to be able to live with. I define success in this crisis. We're going to be successful against this virus if, at the end of the day, we don't have any Coloradoans, any Puebloans, any people that live in Colorado Springs who died because there wasn't medical care or machines able to be made available to them. So I think the key is that we do not want everybody getting sick at the same time and outrunning the capacity of our medical community to deal with it. So I think that's the important message here, that we can flatten this curve if everybody follows the governor's orders and stays at home.
Mayor Gradisar, Mayor Suthers, thanks so much for joining us tonight and adding your perspective. We're going to have much more on this developing story coming up on News 5 at 10. But again, the deadline pushed back to April 26th by Governor Polis. Thanks for staying with us.